Hello, hello, change makers. And here we are in a new week, and we've got another bunch of exciting interviews for you. So, today I am so excited. I'm so honored to celebrate one of our younger change makers in the group. I've had the pleasure of knowing Cody for a number of years now, and I can tell you he is a guy on the move. And I'm hoping he's going to get into talking about some things that maybe you've never heard of before, but perhaps it might make sense for you to check it out. So, Cody, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Cheyenne. I'm happy to be here. As you said, I've known you for years. So as soon as you said you were doing the show, I knew I was going to be on here. It's just a matter of the timing. And yeah, this is great. And maybe this will be the reason Don decides to delete that video off his phone. I'm just kidding.
That's right. We have had fun in the past, have we
We
not?
sure have. Lots of dancing, lots of late nights. It's been great.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'd like to believe that, those weren't the last of it, there's
Fortunately.
definitely room for more in the future. But for today, I would love for you to tell everybody here a little bit about you and what are the things that you're up to that you've got a great amount of passion and excitement about?
All right. Well, my name is Cody Dean, and I've been the way I met Cheyenne and Don was through the Neothink Society and a mutual friend of ours, Jill Reed. We were doing events. Cheyenne and Don would come down to Florida every time I had one. For I think 2 or 3 years, I was doing them regularly, and we were all very passionate about growing ourselves, making ourselves better, and leaping into the next evolution of the mind, which through that material, those in that group call the neothink mind or the neothink mentality. And from that, I've been able to grow my area of purpose in my business. I went from an apprentice in a plumbing company to now I own and run the plumbing company in a matter of 10 years, which is almost unheard of. It's crazy for someone to do that fast to go to ownership. And that's just a testament to this information and self development. It's always worth it. Invest in yourself first. So,
Yes.
uh, in doing so, what I've learned is when you do something that you're passionate about in life, you become passionate about life. And that's something that's written about in the books by Mark Hamilton and Frank R. Wallace. And it's talked about in, the Global Information Network and all kinds of other groups. I'm sure Tony Robbins has said it. And it's one of the basic tenets of being successful in whichever way you define that. It's do what you're passionate about, do what you love. And I found that to be true in my own life. And one thing that's always stood out to me is once you're living a life that you want to live, you'll start to realize that you never want that to end. You want a good life, a productive, creative life, exciting life. You want that to go on forever with no end in sight, just indefinitely. I could keep doing this forever, is the way I say it to myself. And there's a project out there right now that I'm working very closely with, and it's called Immortalis. I'm sure you've heard about it from other people that Cheyenne has interviewed a little bit. Um, what this project is it's not just a research group who's trying to discover immortality. It's actually the formation of a new country uh, that, because of the level of pure freedom that this country will have based on the prime law, which I know Cheyenne has talked about before, immortality will blossom from that. So this project isn't necessarily directly trying to cure aging and death. It's more about creating the environment where that cure can come about. Because humans have been working on curing aging and death and achieving immortality since the beginning of consciousness almost. I was talking with a guy recently who was talking about the first book that we know of right now that was ever written. I think it was Gilgamesh or something like that. And that book was actually about immortality, trying to discover the fountain of youth and to live forever. So, going all the way back to the first book that humans have ever written, we have always wanted to keep life going indefinitely. And that has remained true through so many other books, including the Bible. The Bible talks about having everlasting life here on earth. The famous quote, John 3:16, whosoever shall believeth in me shall not perish, but have everlasting life. That's talking about physical immortality on this planet. So that's something that humans have wanted forever, since the dawn of human consciousness, when we went from being just an animal to having uh, that ability to look inwards, to have that consciousness of self, and to be able to use metaphors and things like that. So one of the reasons we haven't been able to achieve immortality in the last, you know, 3 to 5 thousand years, depending on which way you look at history, or more. Um, we haven't been able to achieve immortality largely because of scientific development. There was a long period of time where we weren't even close to being able to look at cells and see what's happening inside of cells and all of that. But another very important factor is uh, governance and red tape, and people at the top holding back progress of everybody so that way they can maintain control. And the reason that's been a problem is because if people realize they can live indefinitely, then they have plenty of time to start to realize the power they have as an individual. Then that power of the group that's controlling everybody diminishes because everybody realizes they have their own power. So a lot of scientific and medical progress has been kind of squashed because of that. And there's a lot of other reasons too that we don't necessarily need to get into right now, but just know that control of population has happened a lot through the medical industry and through lifespan. Even though humans as a whole want to live longer, even those ones at the top, but they're more power hungry than they are life hungry. They achieve their immortality through lineage. They pass down their wealth and their power to the next generation.
Mm.
But what Immortalis is doing, to bring this back around to the project I'm working closely with, Immortalis is founded by Mark Hamilton, the author of the Neothing books, and his family, his children. And we're trying to establish a new country, a land-based country, just like, you know, the United States of America or Russia or China or Argentina or Mexico, Canada, you know, another country that we think of in the world. We're trying to have a land-based country that's based on the prime law of pure freedom for all individuals. And it's the same tenet across the board for everybody. Everybody is protected the same as an individual. And the prime law is all about eliminating the negative as opposed to adding the positive. And an example of this is the founding fathers of the United States of America, when they were creating the Constitution of the United States and when they wrote the Declaration, they were trying to establish this level of freedom for the people, but they did it through adding the positive. And that's just where the Bill of Rights come in. You have the right of free speech, the right to bear arms, the right to petition. And I know I'm going out of order here, but there's 10 of them or so.
Mhm.
But this has left the door open for uh, more nefarious people to come in and gain control of others, because you can take that adding of the positive, the right you have, and twist the context of that in whichever way you want or whichever way they want, especially over the course of time. And that's why America, when it first started, was the epitome of freedom throughout the entire world. And for the first 150 years of the United States of America, we became very prosperous and very powerful on the world stage. But in the last 50 years or so, there's been a huge decline of American prosperity and standard of living and power on the world stage. uh, although we do still have a lot of power on the world stage, to be fair. But our standard of living has declined a lot, especially for the common person. If you go driving down the road, you're very likely to hit a pothole. And that wasn't true, 50, 75, 100 years ago. And yeah, we've got faster cars now and stuff, but it's very expensive to live nowadays. And that's just an example of how adding the positive, having that Bill of Rights, leaves the door open for control over large groups of people. Whereas the prime law, what that does is it eliminates the negative. It eliminates initiatory force, fraud, and coercion from every individual. And that is how control is implemented upon people. It is through force, it is through fraud, and it is through coercion. If people aren't, if governments and people and entities aren't allowed in any form or fashion to force anybody to do anything, any individual to do anything they don't want to do, then we have a level of pure freedom that's never been experienced before. The closest was early America, but it still wasn't purely free as what the prime law could achieve. So Immortalis is starting as a digital nation because okay, back up a little bit. There's a couple ways to start a new country. One is through brute force and stealing land from somebody else to create a country, which we don't want to do. America did that, and it's one of the most common ways a lot of the large, long-standing countries have been formed nowadays is through conquering. And another way is through just finding land that nobody has claimed yet, setting up your claim and just becoming recognized. That's pretty hard to do because we've mapped pretty much the whole world, and everyone knows where all the land is, and some kind of claim has been put on basically all of it, except for maybe some really small islands. But a country of 30 people is not going to do a whole lot. So then there's a new way of forming a country that has come about because of the digital age, and this is called the network state. And this was established and really defined very well by a guy named Balaji, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because it's going to be butchered so bad, it's horrible. But if you just Google the network state, it will come up, and the first name is Balaji, Balaji, and that's the one. But through the digital age, and this is the way he defines it, a new way of forming a country has come about, and that's through a network state. And that's where people come together on a digital platform as a like mind, and once enough people come together for that purpose of having a like mind of how they would like to live, kind of like the tribe as people call it. Once you have enough of a tribe built up, then you can introduce your own internal currency, which became very easy to do through blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. Solana has a great platform where people can create their own coin. A lot of meme coins are made from that. The Trump coin was made on the Solana platform. So in creating an internal economy, then you start to have a GDP, a gross domestic product, of your network state, your own country, digital country. And then all the land that the people that are affiliated with that network state, whatever land they own, wherever it may be around the world, that can be considered the property or the acreage or the real estate that is associated with this digital country. And so you can actually have a square footage or square acreage size of your digital state or digital country. And then from there, you could raise funds to the GDP through the internal economy and just commerce back and forth, selling products and services internally. You can grow enough of a GDP where you're able to purchase a piece of land from someone, another country out there. And once you have that purchased, then you have a physical land base, and you can then do the next steps of reaching out to the world government, if you will, the UN and other agencies who work more on the world stage, and become recognized as a sovereign country. And that's what we're going for, is recognized sovereignty on the world stage.
Whew.
Yeah, kind of long-winded there. I'll give it back to you for a second, Cheyenne. Where are we at?
That's a lot. That's a lot to take in, but you do such a great job of kind of integrating all those different pieces and helping people understand what it is that you're helping to lead the charge on, and I think that's just amazing. So I'd like to step back for just a minute though, because I think you're aware that Don and I have been very involved. You're talking about people wanting to live forever. You're talking about the potential for not just longevity but immortality, and those are intriguing ideas for some, but we have an awful lot of our younger generations right now who are they're wanting out of here. They can't see that there is, they don't understand who we are as individuals. They don't understand about value creation and how that can become something that makes you really, really happy. So I mean, how does all of this that you're talking about, how does this have the potential to be able to reach some of our younger generations and help them to see that there really is value for being on planet Earth?
I That's a really good question, and you're right. That is very prevalent out there right now. Uh, so I think just by having seen this video and knowing that there are people out there who are working towards staying on this planet indefinitely, that should be a clue that if you don't feel the drive to do that, maybe you're missing something. And it's to no fault of your own. That's kind of the way society has been set up. That's the societal program that's out there. We're not programmed to want to live, and that's part of that control I was talking about earlier.
Mm.
But just knowing that there are people out there who do want to live, it's because they enjoy life, and they want to keep doing it forever. So keep that in mind, that if you don't feel that drive to want to live, you're missing something. It's not your
Mm.
fault. It's okay, but you can't find it. It's out there, and it's all about. I think Cheyenne said it. It's value creation. So a lot of people, especially younger people, and I know this because I'm fairly young myself. I'll be 30 this year, but I remember being a teenager. I was very lazy. I wanted to watch Family Guy on Netflix and play video games and not work and uh, all those things. So yes, I've been there. I know exactly what that's all about. And what that is, that's actually a societal program. You notice everybody does that. Why does everybody do that? Because everybody does that. And then you go through this loop. So, how do you step out of that? It's through being productive. And the way you be productive is, what do you like to do other than watch Netflix? You know, maybe you are very into television programs, shows, and movies, so much so that you would love to be on the behind the scenes. Maybe you want to be a director or an actor or something. That's possible. The point, though, is to find something you like to do that could become monetized. Maybe you like writing. Maybe you like being on stage talking to people. Maybe you like helping people more one on one in a therapeutic kind of way. Maybe you like working on things and you're a tinkerer. You're always in the garage, like working on a motorcycle or something like that. Find what your hobby is. And once you do that, put a little bit of focus on that, virtually every day, at least multiple times a week. And you have your day job. You've got to do that because you've got to pay the bills. But around that day job or night job, if you work night shift, but around your source of income that sustains your livelihood, your rent and insurances and all this stuff, around that, plan time to focus on doing what you love to do, doing your hobby. And as you do that, there's there's a tool. It's called the Power Thinking and Mini Day System that I'm not going to go a whole lot into here. This is in the NeoThink books. I'm sure if you reach out to Cheyenne or a couple other people on this platform, or if you reach out to me, I'll give details so you can reach out to me later. I can point you in the right direction there. But the Power Thinking and Mini Day team, it's a really powerful tool. The mini day system, it can structure your day in a way where you can get as much done in 1 or 2 days that before you're getting done in a week or two. And this essentially gives you more time in the day to be able to focus on what your hobby is. And then the power thinking part of that helps you to push the envelope further. So if you like working on things and you're always in the garage tinkering, you could just stay in your garage tinkering, but you don't grow from that. You just keep tinkering the garage. But if you add power thinking to that mix, you start to realize how you can monetize that, how you can start fixing other people's stuff, making money, and then that becomes your day job. Now you're doing what you love as your livelihood. Now you're into a value production mode of living, which is actually you're already in a value production mode just by working a job. So if you're doing that, you're in good shape. Some people don't even do that. They live off of welfare and they're not even productive. So if you're working a job out there, good on you. Um, but doing that with something you love to do, it takes that to a whole nother level and it puts you on that brink of jumping into value creation. And value creation is where really the drive for life comes from. And so that power thinking, it can push you to that next level of, okay, I'm working on other people's like motorcycles and cars as the example goes, but whatever it is you're doing, maybe you're writing poems or you're writing a novel, whatever you might be passionate about. But then you can start to scale that almost. How can I write more? How can I work on more things? Maybe I should hire somebody to help me work on these cars so I can be making even more money. And then you start to think about buying a shop somewhere or renting a building for a shop. And you start growing, you start making more money. Now you're in value creation mode because you're creating jobs for people in that example, but you're also creating value for the community around you and for society that wasn't there before. And that is what makes me want to continue living. And it's what makes all the people who are working towards living indefinitely, they are working on that because they are bringing value to society that wasn't there before. We are creative beings on this planet. And the reason why being in this physical dimension, if you will, on planet Earth, why that's so cool is because being here, we have the ability to create. We're on the leading edge as physical humans of thought and creation. So if we were to die and, to digress, this is speculative. No one really knows for sure that this is what happens. But let's say we die and we go to a different like spirit dimension or whatever. We have less ability to create because we have less ability to experience contrast and to have desire. That comes from being in a physical body. So we have the best, most powerful ability to create being in a physical body on this planet. So once you start creating, you're going to experience peace, bliss, and joy like you've never known before. And you're going to want to do it for as long as you possibly can with no end in sight. Does that answer the question, Jan?
Very well, very well. I believe I've read in Mark's books where it says the human brain is happiest when it's creating. And that is something that more and more people need to understand and embrace and get involved. I said, we're missing pieces of what we call the super puzzle because there's too many people still sitting on their puzzle piece.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. But anyway, so I have to ask this question because you kind of touched on it a little bit. So what happened in your world that took you from being that lazy teenager to all of a sudden becoming this massively enthusiastic personal growth and development kind of person?
Well, that is quite a personal story. It's a good one. So When I was in high school, as I said, I was one of the lazy ones that, I didn't do homework. I wanted to watch TV, play video games, go hang out with friends. Um, and then going into 17, 18 years old at my senior year of high school, um, I started to really kind of reject a lot of the basic things of life. So I was, working at Waffle House on third shift when I was 17 to 18, on the weekends and like holiday, spring break and stuff. And then after I graduated, I just worked there. And, at 17 and 18 years old, I had already picked up the habit of drinking on the job. I would take, yeah, it's horrible. I would take the Monster energy drinks, which is still really popular. I would take
Yeah.
those, I would drink it like a quarter of the way to halfway down, and then I would fill it back up with vodka because the Monster would cover the smell of the vodka perfectly. You couldn't even taste it. It was great. So you get a little bit of the pep and you get also a little bit of the buzz. It's awesome. Don't try that. But that's what I did, among other things. And then I would end my shift, and third shift at Waffle House is a 10-hour shift. It's 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I would get off of work at 7 a.m., having been drinking all night, and then drive home down the curvy roads of Northwest Arkansas. And very fast, very using both lanes. And yeah, I very much was the opposite of where I am now. Instead of wanting to live indefinitely, at that time, I wanted to die as soon as possible. And so I put myself in a lot of situations where that could have very easily happened.
Mm,
And the shift happened when I can't really pinpoint the one day at this time frame of 17 to 18. Um, Maybe there was a seed planted earlier in my life. I don't know. But at some point in time I started thinking, wait a minute, this is not it. This is not what life is supposed to be about. I'm not supposed to want to die and like do stupid things. And I realized I was living in Northwest Arkansas at the time, and I realized I had an uncle in Florida who owned a plumbing company. And I remember going when I was younger to visit down there when my family would take us to like Disney World and stuff. So we would go down and we would hang out with the family and then go over to Disney World. But I would remember during the week, Monday through Friday, my uncle, he's working doing plumbing stuff, like fixing leaks and unclogging drains and all that. But then he would come home on his lunch break, get in his boat, and take a boat ride down the river and like go see the beach and stuff, and then come back and then go back and fix more people's stuff. And he seemed to be incredibly happy, which is something that was unreal to me. It didn't compute in my brain. So I was like, well, obviously what's going on for me right now in Arkansas, 17 to 18 years old, is not the right track. I'm going to end up in jail or doing really stupid things. So let's let's go try something else. So at 18, I moved to Florida and did not immediately get the plumbing job. I had to prove I wanted that. And uh, there's a lot of nuanced stories throughout all this, but for the sake of time, I will skip over some of that. Um, but once I had moved to Florida, I still had to work at Waffle House, which I did for about 3 weeks. And during that time, uh, I had told the manager of Waffle House I do not want to work third shift. So put me on first or second. That's fine. I do not want to work third shift, which was great for the first week. And then maybe the first week and a half. And then after that, someone had quit. So I had to like fill in on third shift. And then on the third week, I was put on the schedule without even asking me to be on third shift. And so I called one day and said, hey, I'm not coming in today. And the manager was like, are you ever coming back in? I was like, no. So that was the worst I ever quit a job, was with like 4 hours notice. Um, but I still wasn't working for the family plumbing company yet. I would get off of work at Waffle House and then I would go home and most people would go to sleep, but my uncle would be getting ready for the day to go, on service calls, on plumbing calls. And so instead of going to sleep, I would change clothes and say, "Hey, can I ride along with you just to like see what it's like and see what you do?" For no pay, I just rode along with no sleep, no pay, and help my uncle out on plumbing calls. And after doing that for a couple weeks, I called him and said, "Hey, I just quit Waffle House." And basically, the way that went is like, "Okay, well, do you want a job, as my helper?" I was like, "Well, yeah." That was kind of the whole point here. So that was how I got that job, and then I started not knowing anything. Like, I didn't even know what tool was what. I was a lazy teenager. I learned nothing. So I had to start from the very beginning. And okay, so I'm kind of digressing a little bit. Let me go back to the question of here. What was the point that made me want to live? And it was moving into that value production mode. It was going from a job I hated, which is Waffle House. It was, and well, even back up from that is from being a lazy, non-productive human who consumed more value from society than I produced. To yeah, I was productive and doing a job and providing a value, but I hated that job. To now I'm learning something that is very productive that people really need in community and society. And I was much more enthusiastic about it because I saw the potential of it. And so I was happy to be doing it. And that's the answer to the question. That's how I went into a value production, value creation mode.
Wow. Well, you just gave me a whole pile of hope for our society because if you can do that, then other young people can do that. And
There's
that's
no
part of
excuse.
why Don and I are out here. And don't be surprised if somewhere along the line we come looking for you to get in front of a group of young people and tell that story.
I will be happy to do that.
Awesome, awesome. Wow. Okay, well, darn. So, we do need to wrap up here before too long, but I mean, what just if you can communicate anything, some words of wisdom or whatever on, what about all of where you're going right now? What makes you so enthusiastic about it? You've kind of touched on a lot of it, but how can you kind of sum that all up in a few words?
Well, speaking to the people you've kind of been having me speak to this whole time, of maybe the younger people who haven't quite found their way yet, but they know there's something out there that they're missing. Listen to yourself. That inner gut feeling you have, pay attention to that. Follow that feeling because it will never steer you wrong. Even if it looks like it is in a moment, if you just play it out, you're going to realize how it was the most beneficial thing possible. Life is not all peaches and cream. Everything is not going to be hunky dory all the time. There are ups, there are downs, there are roadblocks, there are challenges. But if you follow that gut feeling and listen to yourself, you will go so much further in life than you would by listening to authority figures who are not you, who don't understand you, who don't understand your life. Do not pay attention to that. You'll catch a lot of flack for doing this, but listen to yourself. Follow that gut feeling and live a life out of love. Love what you do. Love the people you are around, your friends, your family. If you have nothing but love for these people and the people you work with, and you love what you do, and you're following your own instinct, your own gut feeling, you're going to be so much more happy in life and so much more successful. It won't even matter how much money you make because you will be living a truly successful life, as defined as striving for a worthwhile goal or dream. It's the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. That is the definition of success. So
Mm.
you can almost forget about the money. Just listen to yourself, follow your gut feeling, and do what you know is right for you. And anyone who's trying to tell you what to do in any position of quote authority, don't internalize that. You've got to hear it because sometimes there are serious ramifications for not doing what uh, current powers that be tell you to do. But you don't have to internalize that. You have to follow yourself. And we're playing a game, and the societal game right now has been set up by other people. So you got to play by some of those rules if you want to engage in the game. but you can learn the rules of the game and you can win. Everybody can win. And you win by listening to yourself.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that these days you are traveling all over the world and doing all kinds of amazing stuff. So anybody who hears your story should be encouraged that, you can go from living in a life where you really are looking for ways to leave the planet to living in a life where you're just having a good time and still working, but working in ways that make you feel good. So thank you so much, Cody, for sharing your story, sharing your perspective and the things that you're working on because I know they're important and hopefully we'll find some other folks along the way who decide to jump in and say, "You know what? That all sounds worthwhile. I want to be part of that." So please let everybody know, how can they reach Cody Dean?
All right. The easiest way is probably on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which is The Immortalist. And if you do the tag name, it's the at The Immortalist 8. Or you can just search for The Immortalist. And I have a few interviews with some very cool people on there you could check out, or you can just use that to contact me. That's totally fine as well. Also, you could email me at theimmortalist8@gmail.com, which maybe Cheyenne could put in the description afterwards. I'll leave that up to her. And then if you are interested in the Immortalis project that I mentioned earlier and you want to know more about that, you can go to joinimmortalis.com and you can learn a lot about it there. It's free to join for now. And once you do join and you get on there, I'm on those message boards every day. So it's another very good place to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, I thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share with everybody here. And hopefully, we'll get to see each other again sometime soon. In the meantime, thank you to all of our change makers for checking out this video, for checking out Mr. Cody and some of the things he's working on. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Cheyenne.